What is up, you guys? Today we're talking to CJ DRADEN. Now, this interview isn't just about stolen work. It's about the fight for creative integrity. DRADEN's story is one that every artist needs to hear. The views and opinions expressed in this video here today are solely those of the artist and do not necessarily reflect the views of Feather and Bone. We're simply providing a platform for their story, and we're not responsible for any of the claims or statements made here.
I did find this interesting book, which is this. This was the exact copy I bought in 2008, which was Grimley's. This was the exact one I bought. So I'm wondering what he would think about it. So I emailed him and asked him to endorse it. It was 3 emails. And the first email, I introduced myself, told him about my story, gave him a good synopsis, sent him some artwork. He emailed me back. He didn't say anything about what I had asked him. He just kind of used it as an opportunity to complain about what he was going through. I had no idea what he's talking about. So I followed up one more, never heard back from him. So from that moment the trailer dropped, my mind went back 15 years and went, he fucking robbed me.
So bro, I've been wanting to sit down with you for a long time. And before we even kind of get into the juice of your story, because it's incredibly juicy and wild, and before we even get into it, I want to say that the most fascinating thing about your story is before I even knew who you were, myself along with millions of people actually have seen your work without even knowing that we were seeing your work. And before we even jump into what that means, I want you to kind of briefly take us back to when I want everybody to kind of know who you are a little bit, the background story a little bit. And, you know, we don't have to get too into your background and all of that as much as, because the story of what all has transpired is, so unbelievable. But take me back a little bit to when your love of like storytelling and artistry and everything started.
14.
You were 14?
Yeah. I didn't grow up with parents in the household, but my mother was a good mother. She was working all the time. And I don't know if you remember back then, you had like the box where you could rent movies, where you had to, and it played 24 hours.
Yeah.
She rented a movie called Unbreakable. And I watched it at 14 years old. It was about these 2 depressed dudes searching for purpose.
Yeah, it's a heavy movie for a 14-year-old.
And it changed the way that I thought about everything.
Yeah.
And about this guy who is still like my favorite hero in storytelling, or arch enemy, willing to put himself through extreme lengths to figure out what his purpose was, including committing acts of terror. Now, it didn't inspire me to do that, but it did inspire me to figure out what mine was. It deeply changed the psychosis of how I saw art. And in turn, it made me very depressed, because the idea of finding meaning, purpose, or God, or anything like that requires a very deep, introspective aperture into self and soul. And at 14 years old, that just really, really screwed me up. But it changed my life for the better in a lot of ways. So yeah, it was. It's kind of a weird saying, because I got made fun of it. But M. Night Shyamalan, his movie Unbreakable, it just changed everything away. So life and art. I
mean, that's a heavy movie for you to see as a kid. So
I'll defend him to this day, even.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow, that's wild. So your artistry is very distinctive. I mean, I originally when we first met, I saw you at a tattoo expo, and your paintings and your style were so distinctly you. And so original.
Thank you.
And as much as I think another time we can dive more into all of that aspect of your work.
Yeah.
But because it's a whole nother, that's a whole nother talk, bro, about, the way that you paint and everything. But I want to talk about your graphic novels. I want to talk about specifically because you're in a process of a whole new book now, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But ultimately, I want to talk about the book, The Wooden Heart. Tell me about, so The Wooden Heart is something that's extremely personal to you. Tell me why. Let's talk about what The Wooden Heart is and why you wrote it.
Well, when we spoke, in private, I was debating whether or not I was going to answer this question, because I knew I'd be put on the spot of it. And I do want to say this: the idea of filling a void in your life requires you to take something from somewhere else to fill that void, especially if a hole is dug and the sand was taken. You have nothing to put it in there, so you have to go somewhere else to find something to fill that void. And eventually there's a rift in the universe because now whatever you took from has to go find something else to fill that void. And it's just a chain reaction and a ripple effect and a reverb throughout life that creates some kind of trauma. It started with a trauma. So that's what this was. It was a trauma reflection from not having a father. This is unbreakable. What am I here for? What is my purpose? Right. Why do I wake up feeling this way all the time? So after that moment of seeing that movie, it just chain reaction of processing trauma and a lack of guidance. Before I left the state of Florida, where I'm from, I just got a passport and I left the country and I didn't come back for a while. And I ended up in Spain at a place called Three Crosses Hill. And I went searching for anything, meaning, God. And I wrote a poem there called Pain from the Scar on a Wooden Heart. And it was about exactly what I was feeling in that moment. And I decided when I got back that I was going to write a story about this, but I didn't know exactly what it was. But I knew I wanted it to be about grief and death. And it became this story called The Wooden Heart in the children's book class in art school. But it was ultimately about not having a father and being lied to about who my father was through shame, through the person that lied to me, not fully wanting to be honest because they were going through the process of it too. I didn't know exactly what the details were, and I didn't find out till later, but I knew something was wrong and I kind of knew what it was about. So that's why it was a poem at first, to just try to filter through the thoughts, reciprocate, dissect, diagnose, and discuss with self how I could figure it out.
And you were in Spain whenever you started to have this
Yeah, that was
inspiration?
2006. The book, I didn't become a graphic novel until 2007.
Did some of the artistry and like the visuals of it have anything to do with where you were in Spain?
100%. I
Yeah.
mean, it was because the idea of, to just put it out there, it was a story of a man climbing to the apex of a hill to chop a tree down to create life. And I was standing at a place called Three Crosses Hill. So it was where I started conceptualizing and trying to understand what God was. And this had a deep impact on me. So you had this idea of a father or a child not having a father. And then I started thinking about the concept of a father that wanted a son. And this is also something in Judeo-Christian lore. So it had a deep impact on that resurrection, if you get my point here.
Yeah, there's so much depth to your story, bro. Like, I know there's so much deeper because we talked about before we even were sitting down for the interview. We talked about some of the depth of all of that and the personal side. I know that the story of the Wooden Heart hits you on such a personal level because of your background but I mean, I think the incredible thing and the important thing to talk about because of this story is the fact that it was so personal to you, and it came from elements of your personal story, to where at the end of it, whenever you realized what had happened, which is that essentially, I mean, Hollywood essentially, they stole your work, yeah? And they stole so many elements of it that had basically built this movie that I saw independently before I even knew you. And to me, I thought it was really beautiful and poetic, this movie. And the most important elements of it were the elements that were your elements, which is
concept, which is my entire book.
So tell me, like, what was your first like knee-jerk reaction when you saw elements of the Wooden Heart in the movie? Like, did it feel surreal? Like, tell me about what was the experience when that first happened?
Well, there's so much stuff that led up to this moment. Let me tell you the exact moment where I last felt okay with everything in life, when I still kind of believed in the fantasy of all this, where hope hadn't fully gone out. I was at a show. This was in 2002, before the trailer dropped. My life got completely destroyed from COVID. I lost the bar, my gallery, but I started doing shows again. I was still in pretty good shape. I wasn't smoking, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't doing any of that. I still had this focus. You're gonna go out there, you did it at 20 years old, you could do it again. And I did a show in Miami, SuperCon, and I was driving back with my dogs in the truck. And I looked at them and I said, you know, this is all fucked. But you still got your book. Hey, Stan Lee believed in you.
Right.
And you did that on your first book. You could do it again. A week later, that trailer dropped.
Right.
And that was like the last thing that's when I was like, I just said to myself that I still had this thing, and I was gone. And the moment that thing dropped, I knew what had happened, because I had spoke to somebody involved in that production about endorsing it before Stan Lee endorsed it.
Yeah. So let's go back. So let's go rewind into that before we even jump into whenever you first realized that it had been stolen. So you got Stan Lee.
It was the moment that I saw that scene in the trailer. I had went back to my database in 2008 and remembered that moment that I asked somebody to endorse it and didn't know he was involved.
So let's talk about that. So who did you show? So you showed it to two big Hollywood people. You showed it to Stan Lee and Chris Grimley. Who'd you show it to?
Well, I showed it to multiple people. Because I was talking with Clive Barker at one point about working with him in 2011. And he liked my stuff, and we wanted to do an animation. And I asked him to endorse it over email. But the chain of events was, wrote the poem in 2006, wrote the book in 2007. The first person that I asked to endorse it was a really popular and really amazing illustrator, James Gurney, who did endorse it in 2007 because he did a presentation at Ringling when I was still a student after the book was written. And then, but I don't know why, but I wanted 2 endorsements, and I don't know what it was in me that said that, but in the process of searching and researching through the internet, if anybody had written anything like what I had done, a completely independent narrative about a man climbing to the apex of a hill to create life out of a piece of wood, found nothing. But I did find this interesting book, which is this. This was the exact copy I bought in 2008, which was Grimley's. This was the exact one I bought. And I said, that's really cool. So I bought it, read through it, and it was just the original lore from Carlo Collodi. So I wondered what he would think about it. So I emailed him and asked him to endorse it. It was 3 emails. And the first email, I introduced myself, told him about my story, gave him a good synopsis, sent him some artwork. He emailed me back. He didn't say anything about what I had asked him. He just kind of used it as an opportunity to complain about what he was going through. I had no idea what he's talking about. So I followed up one more, never heard back from him. So from that moment the trailer dropped, my mind went back 15 years and went, he fucking robbed me. Because I had no idea at that time. It was just dumb luck that I reached out to that one person.
And you were young at that. I mean,
I was 22 years old.
Yeah, you were in your 20s, man.
And the crazy thing is like, you know, when I went into the art world at that time, you know, I was in unbreakable mode, thinking that whole entire scene was people like me hell-bent on finding meaning and purpose. You know, like a creative safe haven for people to share thoughts. I had no idea the absolute malevolence and malintent involved in it.
You didn't know that there were actually, you were pretty you were kind of naive as an independent artist kind of thing.
Wet behind the ear, 100%. Right. But again, how would you know? Like, I had just gotten out of college.
Right. And you would expect that your creativity would be like appreciated by other creatives, and that they would be like, oh, this kid, you know, and that kind of thing. And that's what you'd expect.
Yeah,
especially
I
because
wasn't thinking in terms of vanity and idolization, if that's what you mean. 100%.
Oh, you weren't. Okay.
I weren't. But you know, reaching out to somebody that was already deep ingrained in that world, to a 22-year-old kid before the internet was today, no Instagram, none of that shit. Why wouldn't they have thought they could have gotten away with it?
So how long from meeting or how long from you know, that experience with Grimley between meeting Stan Lee and getting his endorsement in person, and how did that make you feel?
Around 2008, 2009, around that fourth quarter, going into the new year, I met Stan Lee in 2012 at a show in Philadelphia, which was absolutely amazing.
So 4 years later, you meet Stan Lee.
Yeah,
and he endorses the book, and he's all into it and everything. And I mean, you had this.
Oh, it was. You know, I don't get starstruck too often, but I did kiss him on the face. Yeah, I was just like, this is Stan the man. Like, and he's here with me, and I turned around. I went to grab a beer, and my friend's like, dude, turn around. And I turned around, and there's Stan Lee. And he pushed up his glasses. I heard you had some really good stuff, and that classic Stan Lee, you know, decorum.
Yeah.
And I just hugged him and kissed him. I was like, what
awesome.
What the hell do you want with me?
Yeah.
He's like, I just wanted to see it. I was like, dude, look at this. I wanted to show you this, this, and this. Would you endorse this? Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's so rad. So then that probably kept the wind in your sails.
Well, it reignited a Promethean flame, because at that very show, I was confused. I was gonna just basically throw in the tide, no idea what I was doing. Again, this is you're in the throes of deep melancholy about what all this means to you, and the only thing that I found any kind of solace, or I guess you could say a voyage into some ethereal plane to figure out what I was doing here, was art. But at the same time, throughout my entire life, I kept being told that this wasn't a plausible outcome for a trajectory of life.
Yeah.
So meeting him at that exact moment was like just fate, and having him endorse my first book of something that was so personal, it just meant the world to me. Yeah. Especially because I was so ashamed of it when I published it. It wasn't something that I was able to look at. I didn't even look at it until this day. I sold it, I shipped it, I took it to every show, but it wasn't something that I was very proud to look at. I never submitted to an award ceremony. I never submitted to a comic book industry publisher. I just did it for me, and I was okay with that, because I felt if I could just relinquish this for myself and put it in something that would serve as a totem to sit over here, I would feel better about it. And it did help until this. And that's the whole irony about this.
Bro, so I want to take
Sorry
it back.
I get long-winded.
No, man, it's awesome. And you actually, you're poetic in how you speak, which is one of the things that I love about you. So, bro,
Thank you.
You know, whenever so I had seen Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio independently of knowing you. I met you. After we met, I saw elements of your story online that you had kind of posted about.
Sure.
And how I saw the direct images, which we're going to show right now.
Sure.
I saw the imagery, and I was shocked because, like I said, I saw that movie multiple times, before I even knew you, and then watched it again after I met you. Can you kind of break down exactly like what parts, what parts of your story, which ultimately became, like we said, the lifeblood of that film, the evidence to me is so incredibly compelling. Can you break down like what the images were that were immediately stuck out to you that you were like, holy,
Well, if you just look through the first 15 pages of the book, it's uncanny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, side by side.
But if you think about the nature of the story I wrote, it all takes place in one scene. And in the process book, I wrote an entire story after that scene. But as I was, and I don't even know how I had the conscientiousness to make this creative decision at such a young age, because I was such a novice at storytelling. But I made this incredible decision to just say, fuck the ending of this book. It was all about this scene. So I cut it all out, stretched out it, beginning at this, it starts with a man climbing up the hill to chop a tree down where his dead family's buried to build a child. And it's going to end at that moment where he has this moment of conception where he chops the tree down and builds the child, because that's the only story I wanted to tell, why it was made.
Right.
And then in between that, it was a visceral, cerebral journey through the stages of grief.
Yeah.
So as you start it and as you end it, you're kind of going through an abstract voyage through this mindset of what it means to decay into madness.
Yeah.
And believe that you're going to create life out of a tree.
Yeah, which is interesting because
So when you look at the film, in film, you got to show motion and sound. So
right.
You can't really go internal. It's a very specific kind of storytelling.
It's visual.
So all they showed you was the grief and the tree scene. So if you just...
And yet that's still the meat.
The whole scene is my book.
Yeah.
They didn't go in the
1,000%.
So
that's the most emotional part of the whole film.
It's the best part of the whole film.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. It's
and I'm not saying that to be
it's
some kind of like arrogant human being, but it's like it's
the yeast in the bread of the film itself. It's what makes it, what it is. And that's what's so mind-blowing, about this. So, like, whenever this happened, bro, did anybody in the industry, did anybody point out the similarities? Were you the first one to see it? You said you saw the trailer.
I lost my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did anybody before you? It's really affected you deeply emotionally, bro.
If it was just something I wrote, just like an industry project,
right? But it's so personal.
I don't give a damn. But I wrote this because I didn't know who my dad was. So watching somebody else take credit for that, like, just, it really broke me. And it's been 3 years, and I'm not where I was that when it happened, but there's just something within me that just, I think I told you this before, to go into the world, you kind of have to believe in the fantasy of all this to want to participate in it, because too much reality and truth will just turn you into a nihilist. And where I'm at right now, because of this, in spite of this, is trying to find something to make me believe in all this again. It's not because of fear of truth, it's because of being able to see through the code in the matrix. That it's, I mean, you see the things I post, it's not, I just stopped believing in it all. And that doesn't mean that I've given up. That just means that it makes it harder to find an inspiration to continue to move forward. But even in that, it's just innate in me to create. So while I was going through all this, I still kind of poured it out into another book.
So you used to create because you were filled with passion and drive and like inspiration.
That's
and
what I
now
thought
you
this was
create
all
because
about.
you're a creator, but you don't feel as much of the passion and all of that as you used to.
No,
because of the situation. Like how would
Well,
you,
no. Because
how would you describe how it's affected you, like artistically?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I again, this whole situation's wrought in irony. If this didn't happen, I would have never been able to reach a new low to be able to write the ending to my new book. So as much as I do not like these people for what they've done to me, I was forced into a new kind of chasm to be able to find another place of this shadow self to be able to finish what I just made. So I'm not going to thank them for that, but at the same time, it's not, I was always afraid of becoming too happy or content or complacent, because I just felt like I wouldn't be able to create. And it just seems like that's the standard of most creators, where when you're in such a dark space, you're questioning, you're seeking, you're trying to find an answer for something. And this particular situation pushed me into a new low that I couldn't get to myself. It's like when a thought is spawned in the brain, it opens up a portal, and 3 more spots drag you down the abyss, and you just, tunnel down the kaleidoscope until you're able to sit in the bottom of it all, of abstract thought, and try to sit there and figure out what it all means. And that's where I go when I create. That abyss had a bottom for me until this, and I discovered a new one, and it was like, holy crap.
Wow.
So if I didn't ever get to that point, I probably wouldn't have been able to finish that new book. And it terrified
But that's funny,
me.
bro. What you just said is that's the light there, because I know outside of this interview, from us being friends in general, since meeting, how dark of places you've been to, because like you say, this story was so personal to you. It was taken, and you had so much hope, especially after meeting guys like Stan Lee, who endorsed it and loved your work.
Yeah, it's like erasing the last 15 years of your life.
Right, but there's light there, and the fact that you're like you're forged in the fire. You're taking these dark pieces of yourself that are at, like you said, you didn't think that there was a darker place lower than darkness,
Where I could get to naturally.
Right, and so because you got there, because it brought you there, now it's bringing you to this other level. It's like,
Even
bro,
in darkness you can see, but where I went to, it was just a complete absence of light.
wow, yeah, dude.
So
And
trying
you
to find your way
and
out
you
of that.
barely touched on this. I can't believe you barely touched on this. But during COVID, you had a bar and an art gallery and an
Yeah.
incredible,
You saw the picture, yeah.
yeah, in some
So
we'll show pictures.
this situation was the tail end of losing all that from the COVID lockdowns.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna rebuild. So I was sitting in the truck telling my dogs, like, we're gonna get through this. I still got my book, and I still got my Stan Lee endorsement.
Yeah.
Nobody can ever take that away. It was a specific thing I said to myself, and then boom, 2 weeks later, that fucking trailer dropped, and I'm like, how in the hell? Like, it's just crazy. Like,
So, did you hear from anybody in general? I mean, I know you're not really connected to the entertainment industry. In fact, you're very It's funny that you and I are friends, because I'm in the entertainment
This is
industry.
why
which
I
is
was
very
scared of you.
against
This is why I was scared of you wanting to touch on this subject, because I know that we kind of see different perspectives here. I stayed independent specifically because I knew the kind of work I wanted to make was spawned from truth and not market. And a lot of that kind of stuff
beautiful, though.
isn't marketable. Because, and this is why I told you I'd never submitted to a company, I never submitted to an award ceremony, because I was just complacent knowing that I created something for myself that I felt was was real and honest. And if people liked it, perfect. I wasn't looking for any kind of self-congratulations from it. It was just, am I able to walk this fine line and do this dance between telling the truth and a fictional lie? And I figured out how to do it. There's a nuance to good storytelling that way. And this is why a lot of people, maybe some people, are afraid to do it, because it requires you to go to places you may not like. Because facing yourself, you're going to... What? It's a very hard thing to do, but it's the only way I know how to create. And after, I've never felt so good about being so destroyed after creating something, because it's like, look what you got, look what you did. And it just makes me happy. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If they like it, they want to be a part of it, fantastic. And this what brings me to the point about what your question about everybody seeing the work and not knowing where it came from and getting some bullshit excuse about how they created it, which is actually just a depressed kid that wanted to figure out who his dad was. And falling in love with a story about a father that wanted a son.
Right. Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know any other way to create than to go to those places. I don't even think I could do it. I just couldn't get a busy work assignment from a company.
Right.
And it's just not real to me. And that isn't that the point of why we do this?
Right. Yeah. Bro, I think the thing that's so fascinating about your story too isn't just the...
It's aggravating. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I get it. I know you want to express that for sure. I get it. I think one of the things that's really fascinating about your story is so many of these stories that we're telling with Feather and Bone is about artists, taking broken pieces and turning it into light, making beauty from ashes, using their pain and turning it into fuel for their craft, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think one of the interesting things about you is that your story is still ongoing. I mean, I think the thing that's really mind-blowing about this whole story is that it's still ongoing. And, you're, because you're so independent and you're so underground by choice, which again, thank you for talking about it, because I know that you choose to be, away from all of that.
I'm pretty open about it on my Instagram.
You're open about it. You're open about it, but
it's very vulgar.
You really choose.
I never used to be that like overt,
You haven't
visceral fucking hate. Like it never used to be that way until this. I had a choice to say it, and I respected those artists.
But you didn't go to like TV networks or journalists and be like, look at this imagery that we're telling your story now and talking about it and showing the imagery that, like you said, is so blatantly obvious that it's like side by side screen grabs of your.
Well, no one would touch it anyway. I mean, you're talking about the emperor, right? And the Praetorian Guard of white collar criminals that would just do anything to protect that. I mean, who the hell is going to believe me or listen to me? And that, I had to just accept what reality is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but I did have moments of that. Like, I had this really cool spot with Whoopi Goldberg. I didn't seek it. She just showed up at New York Comic Con, and the producer's like, dude, this is great work. Can you paint something for us? Like, yeah, absolutely. We had a two-minute great spot on her show at the New York Comic Con segment. Stan Lee was one. I don't deny it. It's not something that I would say to hell with in general. If it comes, it comes, but I'm not going to seek it. The point is to find truth and meaning. This is why I wanted to do this. There is no other occupation in the world that will give you the ability to study an amalgamation of topics to be able to put into a body of work. It's always pick a study and go into it. And I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but this was my way of finding meaning. I could study whatever the hell I wanted to try to find a way to take an abstract thought and transcend it into something physical from a world that doesn't exist to anybody else, so that people could see what it was like for me to experience this place and my time here. Whether they cared or not, it was just, that was the journey. If something came out of it, great. If nothing came out of it, fantastic. I'm still mind blown that I'm in this situation to begin with. It's not something I wanted. Right. If he would have asked me for it, I would have given it to him, and I wouldn't have asked for a dime. I just wanted to be a part of something fucking cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, bro, what would you, like, if given the opportunity and you were sitting in front of the people that essentially, stole this, your material, what would you, it's a heavy question, but what do you think you would say?
Start with this. When the movie came out, I went to the movie theater to see it. And it was just by chance. As I walked in, I was the only person in there. Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Nobody was in there but me. So I had this entire movie theater to just watch this thing by myself. And I'm just waiting for this. And you could see it build up, and you could see it build up, and you could see it build up. And as it starts to progress, I'm watching this thing, and I just started crying. I'm like, you did a good job. You did.
Yeah. Wow.
That's all I'd say.
Yeah.
Good work.
You'd say you did a good job. Wow. Bro, that's hardcore.
It wasn't.
That's more hardcore than you getting angry.
I was just like, it wouldn't be in the style that I would choose. My stuff is a little bit more macabre. Right. But I understand, you gotta, it's kind of a children's thing. You gotta do all this stuff. But yeah, man, I mean, it was.
Yeah.
Look, dude, he's a talented storyteller. He did a good job with that. Yeah. I just wish they asked me for it.
Yep, bro. That's I think that's actually really amazing that's where your headspace will go, because I know the ups and downs of your emotions. And
I'm not proud of the way I handle this on social media at all, but I don't think that there's any kind of book or therapy or anybody else that could guide you through how to psychologically or emotionally cope with something like this. And I'm definitely different after this. This is not the kind of person I used to be.
Bro, you were intellectually molested. So ultimately,
I say psychologically raped.
Psychologically raped is the same. I mean, that's heavy. I mean, that's
yeah, that's what it feels like. Look, I don't know what it would like for a person to be abused in that way physically, man or woman. But
well, you don't know until this kind of thing happens.
Yes, or how to deal with it. Trauma is trauma.
Yeah.
And everybody experiences it differently. It kind of gets overlooked, like the psychological side of it. But, I mean, again, I just don't think anybody could truly understand what it's like to go through something like this until they do it. So I'm not ashamed of how I've handled myself, but I'm also not proud of it, especially when you get threatened to go away.
Yeah. But that's another beautiful thing about your story, about you kind of rising from the ashes with all this, man, is the fact that you have the strength to sit here, wake up early, and talk about, or an artist like you maybe stayed up all night.
I'm a night guy.
Yeah.
I just showed up. I haven't slept at all.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. But so for you to do that, despite all of this, you're still creating. You still have something in the pipeline right now. Can you talk to me a little bit about Florida Man?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, it's funny, after all this, I was just hoping you asked that question.
Yeah.
Because this was written through this process. I mean, it started in 2020. I kind of wrapped it up in 2024, but like I said, I sank to a place where light doesn't exist, and the work is indicative of that. And I look at the book and I go through it, all five pieces of it, it's like this is the work of a deeply unhealthy human being. It's not who I'm going to end up being, but I'm glad I captured this screenshot of where I was.
It's part of your story.
Because I'm not there anymore. And if I didn't have this mental fortitude to get up and write every day, this is what I was telling you, like the Promethean flame was dying. This wasn't a death blow. It was it was dealt a life critical hit.
I bet you've come a long way saying it wasn't a death blow. Because I bet you used to think it was a death blow.
Yeah, but I look back on it thinking, but I still forced myself to get up, take care of the dogs after everything I had lost, forced myself to get up and write. I sat at a coffee shop for 6 hours a day writing this damn book.
That's awesome.
And because it was all I had, it was all I felt I had. It was just
awesome.
Me, pen, and my thoughts. And I'm a big reader. I love to read. So, I mean, I must have spent thousands of dollars at this coffee shop. I was probably their best customer for 3 years. They're probably regretting I'm not there anymore. So so this book, it's just a portrait of a lot of different things. And I mentioned this before about the nuance between trying to tell the truth and also give a narrative at the same time. And there's a very good. I don't like to boast, but I think I did it well. The dance between trying to tell the truth and layer a lie of fiction over it to allow a viewer to enter the work in their own way. And I think I did it pretty good. So the book is basically about a man surviving a dystopic Florida in the year 2054. And it's not necessarily not inordinately a political book. It's more just about the story of a man surviving a hopeless environment. not wanting to be there. And what is he living for? Trying to find something to live for, right? Like I don't want to say too much because piecing that puzzle together took 4 years, and I think I did a good job. I mean, but again, I write for me.
Yeah.
So who the hell knows? Nobody might like it, and somebody else may steal
Bro,
it.
the cover photo is just, I don't know how you got that imagery of taking the state of Florida and turning it into a guy.
Oh, the hit. Yeah, it was like the graphic. I just see things in shapes, and it took a while because I was thinking about how I wanted to do the cover for a while. I was like, this has to be something that truly grasps people into it, but I don't want to be too on the nose. And I think that is the nuance of someone that can give you something about something without ruining it or allowing you, like I said, just allowing you to enter the work in their own way, is to just hit on a subtlety. That's it. Just touch on a subtlety and leave it alone and let people figure it out for themselves. That's why I like abstract art or minimalist art.
Yeah, you were like that kid who saw shapes in the clouds, because all your stuff is very like image.
It's like I almost don't exist here. Like I'm kind of disassociated, cognitively dissociated from reality. Everything I see is an opportunity to document something.
What advice would you give an independent artist that might be struggling through some kind of adversity or something like that? Like what advice would you give artists that might be watching this that maybe disillusioned, maybe struggling with the idea of being disenfranchised? Or, I mean, what's some advice you can give anybody that could possibly potentially be in your position? You were 22 whenever you had Stan Lee endorse.
I was 26. It was 2012.
Right. 22 is when Grimley saw everything, and then 4 years later, Stan Lee. So you were young.
Yeah.
So maybe you could, maybe it would be a little bit of like, because of maybe you felt like you were a bit. I mean, I was too in my 20s. Like there ends up being a bit of naivety, like just thinking, oh, everybody's going to help me and that kind of thing. And maybe,
I'm bad at giving advice because again, I grew up in a very different time. The internet wasn't around,
right?
And there's so much crap. It's like before I say what I would say, I'll just say this: like I'm very grateful that I grew up in a time before the internet, because the metric of reality is very clear to a person like me. I don't know if you get what I'm talking about.
Sure, yeah.
Like you're able to enter the world, experience the world, then go online and see, well, this is all BS. It's very hard for generations growing up now to look at the internet and think that everything they see isn't real or not. Or, you know what I mean? There's such very hard to try to give someone like that advice. But I think something that would be universal, not just to someone that would be wanting to go into the arts, is just move through life with integrity and tell the truth.
Yeah.
And you'll go on the journey of a fucking lifetime, dude. I had no idea that anything, my first book endorsed by Stan Lee and stolen by these people, it's not why I wrote it.
Right. Yeah.
If you tell the truth, it's impenetrable. It's immovable and unshakable. It's indestructible. No one can take it away from
It's
you.
unbreakable.
I like that. But it's the truth, man. It's just like there's something about telling the truth that lives forever. And it doesn't matter what it's about. But I had this feeling, and I wanted to tell you this because I know, we're believers.
Yeah.
Someone asked me recently, do I believe in God? And I said, yes. I said, do you believe in God is in control of all this? And he's a passenger, in my car, just a friend of mine. I said, you think God's going to stop the brake pedal from me hitting stop the red light, hit the brake pedal? Then no. But my definition of this idea is that telling the truth, you're allowing that universal knowledge to get to know you. And if you tell the truth and move through life with integrity, it's going to come around. And it's going to reveal to you something that you would have never thought you would have got the truth from. That's what this was. Wow. I was not in the position to get that information to know I was robbed. I wasn't supposed to be on the side of the coast of Florida. I wasn't supposed to have that house or that bar, but I met people through that journey, ironically, that got me that information. So I just think that telling the truth is probably the most powerful thing you could do. And it saves other people from experiencing some kind of trauma.
I think a lot of people will relate to that watching this too, man. Your honesty and your transparency is beautiful, and I respect that. And I think a lot of people respect that. How can people support you right now? Like, what would you say? You want people to kind of maybe have people get eyes on your book, your new book coming out? I mean, the Wooden Heart's still available, right?
I mean, if you want to, you could. I would just, yeah, I hate, it's not, you know.
It's because you don't feel like you need to ask people for help or anything like that.
My position.
But part of this is I want people to be able to support you.
Dude, I don't know why people have supported my art these years. I have no idea how.
Because people get moved by it. Your art, you've been, as an artist, you've created for you, but your art affects people, and then you are independent of that art at that point.
I've never been the type of guy to try to sell something, and I'll tell you why, real quick. People know, like if you're trying to sell them, and people know if you're full of shit, and if people know if you're telling the truth. And I always let people decide for themselves consciously and emotionally to be a part of the journey if they want to. So if people come up to me at a show, I just speak to them with respect and with passion, and they decide for themselves. So, I mean, if you want to, you can check out my Instagram, but at the same time, just tell the truth, man.
I love that. Del Toro's Pinocchio, the whole beginning of it, and even though they told it in their way, they used your imagery, which moved me. And so that art has moved millions of people, your imagery and your creation and, you know, your ideas, which even though you weren't credited, they moved people. And ultimately, I think that's something that's really going to help you as you move forward in all of this, is realizing, because you're the type of artist that you make stuff for you, and yet you have empathy for other people, and you care so much that when I ask you something like, how can other people support you and stuff, your mind didn't even go there because you're not asking for handouts or help or any of that kind of thing. But I'm telling you right now,
I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me.
I understand, but I'm telling you that your art has moved people, and what you do and what you created has moved people, and it will continue to move people. And that's the beautiful thing about your story as you keep moving forward in it, and that your story has a long way to still go, and you're in the middle of it. And just like you said, Florida Man is a book that is part of your story, but it's not your whole story. Just like The Wooden Heart is part of your story, but it's not your whole story. So, bro, I'm very grateful for you sitting down and talking about all of this. I know all of it is deeply personal. I know that this has been a difficult road for you beyond anything that you've talked about in this interview, and I hope that people will see that. And I love you, bro. I appreciate this time.
Thank you.
Together.
And I wanted to say this about this whole thing, which is that, you know, I think I told you this before, that I was going to come into this more optimistic than the way that we first met and spoke in Ybor about doing this. And because I wanted to use this as an opportunity, because I tried to battle it. I can't battle it on their grounds. So I wanted to use this as an opportunity to just speak about it in kind and just move forward.
Does it feel therapeutic?
Yeah, I would say so. I've also had 3 years to deal with it, but it's just, again, man, wrought with irony, all this stuff. And we didn't get even to all of it, the details, the nuances, and the idiosyncratic things about how much irony is deeply involved in this. But we became friends around the time that this was coming to an end. So I don't think I would have been able to have this conversation a year ago. So, I mean, I appreciate it. Again, I was curious why you wanted to talk about it, but I'm very grateful that you invited me to be here.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
And I'm honestly, I'm glad that you liked it.
Thanks, man.
Again, because it's just such a personal thing. I was deeply ashamed of. It's still crazy to me that I have to live with something like this the rest of my life. It's just, it's fucking bananas.
It becomes a part of you, bro, and it's like a scar. It's like an emotional scar that it'll never fully heal, but it's always part of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, it's just crazy. Like I never thought that I would be involved in something like this, and I never wanted to be. I just tried to make art that was real. And
you have, bro. You have, and you touched a lot of people with it, and you'll continue to do so. So this has been great, man. Thanks for sitting down and talking about it.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you.